right. Should we start this?
Yeah, man.
All right. Welcome back to episode 16 of the Can You Geek podcast. I'm going to go really slow on 17. That. I know. I'm going to go really slow every time.
Yeah. Soon we'll be at the episode you wanted to announce at episode 14.
I was... Well, knowing what's coming for episode 17 now, you can see why my excitement was there.
You didn't know that when you said it.
You're
trying to cover it up now. It's a conspiracy.
Of course I am.
17 gate.
Yeah.
Calling it.
It's exactly my plan. So for those that don't know, I'm Steve. This is Errane.
What up?
And so today we're a little bit of change of plans. We were going to be doing a news episode, but we realized that at the time of this recording, we are 2 days before the start of Comic-Con, and there's going to be a lot of news coming out of Comic-Con.
I don't think so, Steve. I think you're wrong there. I don't think San Diego Comic-Con brings new news. I don't think that's what it does.
It usually doesn't, but, you know, it's going to be a really boring week. So we figured we would instead talk about something we both have just finished binging, and that is Stranger Things season 3, and I guess kind of Stranger Things as a whole.
Yeah, this show is somewhat of a phenomenon, and seriously, I think it's like, in my opinion, my humble opinion, it's like the equivalent of Game of Thrones to HBO is Stranger Things to Netflix. I think House of Cards originally was like the Netflix original that defined Netflix, and that kind of fell off. One, the show kind of got, not that it was bad or anything, but then the Kevin Spacey stuff happened. But the casting for Stranger Things, the ambiance, whereas like the Marvel shows are really good. Some of them are really good, some of them are terrible. I see Stranger Things as the one collective thing. Like everybody talks about it. If you're not watching Stranger Things, you're kind of out of a large loop. Like there's a lot of people. It's the same thing with like the very few people the very low populace who doesn't watch Game of Thrones. If you're not watching Stranger Things, there's a lot of conversations going on around you that you're not involved in, you're not enjoying or a part of. And I think honestly, with Game of Thrones, I can see why people aren't into it. With Stranger Things, I do not see a reason you're not into Stranger. I think it's a well-produced, a well-casted, a well-written, music is amazing in the show.
Yes.
And it sets place in the 80s, which I think is just
nostalgia for most people. That's like Netflix's demographic is, I mean, I hate to say it, it's probably me. It's like me and you. It's the mid to late, like early, the 30s to early 40s is probably their target demographic for Netflix, for most of their stuff. And when did we grow up?
And it's so funny you say, because we grew up in the 80s.
Yeah.
But something funny with that, what I think's funny, is look at the styles that are coming back now.
Oh, I know.
I mean, fanny packs are starting to be worn again, dude. People are wearing those same sunglasses. Like, I see
bright colors, big hair.
Yep. And I told Jess, I was like, the 80s are coming back? Like, is it the right time for that? Are we now old people? Do we get to say, oh my gosh, our style's coming? You know what I mean? And not really more you than me, because I was born in 85, so I only had like those 5 years of my life in the 80s were very, very young, right?
Yeah. And I mean, when you were born, I was 6, so.
You're so old.
I'm so old. But I do remember a lot of the references that they have in that show, and that's it does hit home. That it triggers that nostalgia feeling, and it's got to be exactly like totally what they're like. I remember New Coke. I remember it. I remember how bad it was, but I remember New Coke.
So that was a reference that I knew of, but had no like relation to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas for season 2, when Ghostbusters happened, that's something that speaks to my childhood. And I think that's where they did a really good job with the nostalgia piece of it, is even with they knew what pop culture things to take and reference and piece together to capture even your audience, right? Which is slightly older than my audience, which was like the beginning of the end of the 80s, if you will, and kind of that early 90s era. And then our now younger audience that loves it now, because not only are some of the styles good, but as we said, the show itself despite all
So
the
good.
nostalgia part, is just those kids are amazing. And the supporting cast around them with David Harbour and Winona Ryder is amazing.
Yes.
Like, it's just a good show. Everything about it is incredible. Every season has been amazing to watch and just having me wanting more.
Yeah, I am looking forward to season 4. I don't want to wait another year, but I mean that's the issue with the way Netflix does things. It's really good, and it's frustrating at the same time, is because they release majority of their stuff all at once and you can binge the entire season. You then have to wait a year to watch the rest of it.
Yeah, and there's been a couple shows. So I'm a binger. You know, Jess and I, when we got together, we were like, because I had been gone. I was in Texas, as I described before. And so when I came back, two things had happened. Spider-Man Homecoming, Spider-Man Far From Home had come out, and Jess still hadn't seen Homecoming yet. And then Stranger Things Season 3 came out, all while I was in Texas, like right as the day I left. Like, I think I left on July 2nd, so that was the day that Spider-Man came out. And I don't remember what day Stranger Things Season 3 actually aired, but either way, it was during that time. And so when I came back, I told Jess, I was like, we have homework to do. And it happened that I scheduled my time to drive back exactly when her weekend started. So we started, catching up, getting Stranger Things. We binged it all together. And when we were done binging that, like we transitioned right into, I think we had bought Homecoming. I had her watch Homecoming. She like me, and I not to get sidetracked on that, I don't think Spider-Man Homecoming's the best Marvel movie. I don't even think it's like it might be upper half, but it's like near the middle. To me, Spider-Man Homecoming, whereas Tom Holland's incredible,
Yeah.
he's like Ludacris on a hip-hop album. Like, I like Ludacris's music. I prefer Ludacris as like a featured artist. For some reason, I just think that his lyrics and his performance is better as a featured artist. That's just what I think. I think Tom Holland is better as a featured character in the movies rather than having his own show. And then I watched Far From Home, and I take that all back completely. Far From Home was so good, and we definitely need to talk about it off air. But that movie was just bonkers, ridiculous, amazing. Jake Gyllenhaal killed it with his performance. Everybody, it's a good movie. Anyway, so we watched that. But with Stranger Things, it's funny because what you're talking about with the binging issue is that the episodes are even made nowadays where it's not like, you remember when we used to watch shows, I guess it still exists today because there's normal television, but I just don't have cable. When I watch these shows, this is built for binging. Like, it gives you that feeling of just smoothness. It just goes and goes and goes and goes and goes. Like, it's not traditional in its method. And I think that there's been some other shows like what was it called? The Get Down. Well, The Get Down was an amazing show. It only lasted one season, unfortunately. I really wanted that to go many other seasons. But what they did was they did first season. They had a first half and second half. So what you got was you got the first half of the season. You got to watch that. And then you had what you're talking about. You had something to look forward to. It was kind of a middle ground, right? So like a traditional length of a normal season television show, you got the first half. You waited a bit, like that half a year moment, got your second half. And then it wouldn't traditionally, like it only lasted one season, but season 2 would have started not too long after that. Whereas like with Game of Thrones, we had a episode a week, right? Like it's not a full year wait. Whereas with Stranger Things, man, it's a week after it releases and we've watched all of it. You know what I mean? Like every episode's been watched, we're done, and now we're like, oh my God, I'm frothing for more. And it's just that intake of information, and it goes back a lot to what we talked about in our episode 3 about geek culture and where it's at, and just us as a civilization and what we want. We want that information fast. We want to suck it in fast, and we take it in, and we're almost gorging ourselves with this info, and it's kind of crazy. And you're right, it leaves me sad because now it's already over, and like, I could rewatch it. And that would be cool, but I want more. Like, I'm just, I'm greedy, man. I'm just wanting more and more and more. Gluttonous, that's the word I'm looking for. I'm gluttonous for more.
And I mean, like, I'm going to watch it again. My son absolutely loved it. But then I'm going to be picking out little things in the background that I won't believe that they put in there. Like, there's so much stuff. Spoiler warning for the season. I'm a little shocked they killed Zac Efron. I'm sorry they killed Billy. I swear
Zac
to God.
Efron.
I swear he could have been Zac Efron.
I'm so sad for Zac Efron.
I'm so sad for Zac Efron.
Rest in peace, buddy. Everything's going to be okay.
I said that, and my wife almost hit me because she was like, now I can't unsee it. I'm like, I'm sorry, but with the, I couldn't, every time I saw him, I'm like, hey, it's Zac Efron.
But who is that?
Darcy
Dacre? No, it's like Decree.
I think it's Decree. He's very Australian, by the way. So since watching the season, I've learned a few things. One, I didn't know that Millie Bobby Brown was English, like British, and had a really British accent. And I was extremely shocked to hear that. Watching her on stuff like The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon and a few other interviews. And I was just like, that's her voice. Interesting. Because I've only ever heard her doing American accents.
Oh, okay. I heard her in an interview after the first season, so that doesn't shock me at all.
Yeah, it's possible I missed it, like I forgot, fair. But yeah. I was shocked, and
it's a big
he's
shocker
full on Australian.
Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, he's the Australian Zac Efron. Like, there's so many weird things.
Congratulations, buddy. You don't have your own identity anymore. You're just Australian Zac Efron. Copyrighted by Steve here. I will talk about I think that's a good place to start it, because I think that the way the season starts, so you get this build up. And so I will say that for Jess and I wanted to watch season 3 so bad, and I was just frothing at the mouth to see it so bad, and Jess was too. We didn't bother rewatching 1 and 2.
I didn't either. I just went straight in. 3. Yeah.
And it was funny because Jess has a far better memory than me, and I couldn't
We've established that your memory sucks.
Yeah, it's terrible. I couldn't remember who Billy was. I also didn't remember that Max, right? Max is his sister. I didn't remember that was his sister. I didn't remember any of that. And that's sad because I loved 2, but it was funny because Jess wasn't helping me with it. It all happened before it was like, because, eventually it gets, in the show, it tells you, right? Because it, it rehashes that out. But like, I slowly figured it out on my own right before it would tell you who those people were. So it kind of felt good. It was like, oh yeah, way to go, brain. Way to get that character back in your head and figure it out. Because it was a slow roll for me. Because I honestly, because of that very reason, like you watch the season, you suck it in, you might watch it 1 or 2 more times. But I mean, I've seen The Office, which is a 9-season show. 9-season show. I've watched The Office maybe 10, 11 times. And I still forget episodes because I never watched it on TV. I've only ever watched it on Netflix. And so I binge it every time. So every time I watch it, I still get new episodes where I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. Now it's getting to the point now where that's not the case. I've watched it so many times. But with Stranger Things, I watched the first season and it gave me nightmares for a year. And I think I've mentioned that before. I've at least told you that. I was going
to say, that's why I was a little shocked at how excited you were to watch season 3, knowing that you don't like scary stuff.
So let's put that in perspective, though. So I thought season 1 was scary. Season 2 was not. Season 3 was not. I didn't feel a fear factor. It was more shock value. In season 1, it was kind of it messed with my mind and it messed with me. And I'm very, it is the reason, and when I say that, I'm talking about Pennywise. Yeah. It is the reason that series when I was a kid is the reason that horror movies are bad for me. Like that scared me all the way into adulthood. Like I'm very, very sensitive to fear, like scary stuff, which sucks because Jess loves that. I love comedies. I like to laugh. And Stranger Things is full of comedy, full of funny stuff. But that first season really threw me for a loop. But when season 2 came out, I was like, well, we got to rewatch season 1. So we rewatched it. Now that I knew what to expect, it was a little easier. But, I mean, the shock value in season 1, I think, is still better for, the fear factor than season 2 and 3. And I think that when I watch season 2, you got the dogs. like the dog creatures everywhere and stuff. And like Samwise Gamgee did a really good job, and he was amazing as a support role. And
Rip Sam.
Yeah, poor Sam. But I thought that they gave a great homage to him in season 3, and I really enjoyed it. But I'm not big on scary movies, but it was easy. It was hard to put that together. So back to my point about Billy, that character, that actor, just amazing. And I think compared
he
to
did
his
such a
performance,
really good job, honestly.
he was great in 2, but his performance as the main antagonist is 3. It was
incredible.
It was it was just perfect. It was perfect. He killed that role, and it was just so good. And I know you're talking about like the whole the killing him off or whatever, and I know how hard that is to believe. But then again, and I get that it's a TV show, but if you think about all the things he's done.
Oh, his character had come full circle. The character's arc was done.
He died a hero's death, Vice dying a villain. And I think had you let him recover because of all the things he'd done, because you could tell he was fully aware of it, right? Every character as they were possessed knew and were fully aware on the inside of what they were doing, even when they were made active as an agent of the Mind Flayer, right?
Yes.
So it just... He knew everything he'd done. I'm not sure he could have lived with himself. And he was already damaged goods as far as a human being from what he'd gone through in his childhood.
Which was incredible. That whole storyline they wove in there, and how Eleven was helping him deal with that part of it through just trying to survive.
It was beautiful, is what it was. It was a beautiful story. It was what is it that 311 says? A beautiful disaster, right? Like it just was amazing. And I thought that his performance, in my opinion, was the best of the season.
Yes. No, 100% agreed.
Poor, not Decree or Dacre or Dacre. Dacre? Maybe it's Dacre? Dacre Montgomery? I like Dacre. That's a cool name.
I like Dacre too.
But he's not Dacre Montgomery. He's the New Zealand Zac Efron? Is that what you called him? Or the Australian Zac Efron?
Australian Zac Efron? I think he's Australian. God, if he's from New Zealand, I'm really going to be bad.
Then he's the Kiwi Zac Efron from New Zealand. Yeah, otherwise he's the Aussie Zac Efron.
The other person who I think this season killed it, there was 2, was Robin, who was Steve's or Scoops Ahoy.
Yeah, what a great job.
Oh God, it was so good. And Lucas's little sister.
Yes, she
Operation
was
Child
amazing.
Endangerment.
Yeah, Operation Child Endangerment.
One of the best lines in the entire year was when she had the headset on, about to climb in, and she was like, "All right, commence Operation Child Endangerment." I laughed so hard. And it's like, this is a serious moment. And I could not stop laughing. I actually saw a tweet from Stephen King, who is one of my favorite writers. He even said that line had him floored. Like, it was so well done. Both of those characters.
Yeah, it was good. That's for sure.
It's a sign of really good writing and development in the show that they can make you like these characters in the 3rd season really, really quickly and easily.
So that's Priya Ferguson, who plays Erica Sinclair, Lucas's little sister.
Yeah.
And it is Maya Hawke, who plays Robin. So to put that kind of a counterpiece to you, and I'm not trying to be the jerk in this case.
No, we need differing opinions sometime.
Yeah, well, whereas I thought Robin and Erica were greatly played, and they definitely both entertained me. I'm not gonna lie, like that whole drugged up scene that that Steve and Robin have together is so good. And pretty much any scene that Erica was in, I was laughing, especially the America part. But her and Dustin's relationship reminded me of like Arya and the Hound, like that amazing relationship that you got where you remember it forever. I thought that Dustin and Erica had that relationship. It was super fun to watch, and it was super interesting.
Yeah, the whole you like My Little Pony, right?
Yeah, where he breaks down how she's a nerd was just as big of a nerd as they are, because she likes My Little Pony and breaks down that My Little Pony is every nerd trope there is. It was so good. so good, and he does it so flawlessly, and he does it well. And that was going to be my point. So
Yeah.
whereas I thought like Robin and Erica's characters, they were really good. I don't feel like they're new, so it's like the new shiny thing.
Yeah.
But I want to discuss who I thought was better, which was Jim. I thought his character's development was really, really good. And I thought that it was really fun to watch how much he's grown throughout the show. And I thought that Dustin, his character's development and where he was at, I personally, the whole thing happening outside of those, I every time Billy was on the TV, every time Dustin was on the TV, and every time Jim was on the TV, I was much more engaged than any other characters.
No, completely agree with you on all of those. I would say that Steve's character as well, with his play with Dustin, was so well done as well.
It was good. Steve for me, like, as much as he has grown, I just didn't see, and it's hard. I need to rewatch it. This is all fresh, but when I think back through the season and watching it, just Dustin, Jim, and honestly, Billy. Billy was just, I can't get over it. I can't get over his facial expression. I can't get over the way
scene
he
with
acted
the parents,
that character.
When
he's Heather, right? It was
Heather's parents. That whole scene where they were just like, "Oh, this is my sister," and the whole like body snatchers thing. Oh, it was so good.
It was just so like good.
Yeah, the whole like deadpan. It was so well acted.
I very much appreciated Zac Efron from Australia. Let's just put it that way. I have a thing for Zac Efron from Australia's acting. It was so good.
Being that you brought up Hopper, I agree with you. His character and everything in the whole season 3 was so well acted and so well done. The struggle as a dad with, a preteen.
Reading the letter. I cannot deny it. I teared up, man.
Oh, at the very end? Oh my God.
I couldn't do it, man. That was tough. It was so tough because you never see that side of him.
So where I was going with this is, so there is controversy about his character and what Netflix did with it. And so a lot of viewers have come out saying that they shouldn't have played Hopper the way he did, being this jealous, kind of stalkery guy, because they're showing exactly what women should never look for in a man, and how basically they were just shooting down the whole thing. And I agree that, you don't want a stalkery guy and all this other stuff, but I didn't see him being portrayed that way. And so that's where I kind of wanted to bring it up to you, and I should have linked it, but the whole article and how it all started.
Okay. Well, I can give you my take on it, and then you can tell me what you think of that. Yep. Okay. Cause there's another article that came out about the smoking. So Jess told me that apparently, there's been a rave and Netflix caved to the people. Again, I've talked about how much I hate, what is it called? I know
what you're talking about with this one.
What's that? The fan. You've
lip
said
service
it.
to the fans. No.
Fan service. That's it. Fan service. Yeah. I've told you how much I hate fan service. I hate fan service. Let the fans suffer. Trust me, they're gonna watch the show anyway. It doesn't matter. So there was a big hoopla humdy-bum about the smoking in the show, and there is a lot of smoking in the show. Okay, and it ties directly into what you're talking about. Okay, so all right, ladies. You are smart, sophisticated, very well-thinking individuals. You're watching a show about a man who is very much in love with a woman, and he is jealous because he doesn't know how to articulate his feelings because he is acting the part of a person in the 80s. I am sorry. Again, the reason I love this show, the reason why Stranger Things is done so well, is they embrace the times. okay? Smoking was a thing. It was a popular thing to do. People did it everywhere. Smoking sections still existed. People still smoked in their offices. People smoked everywhere. It's a part of the 80s. Men were not as educated and women were more oppressed in the 80s than they are now. So in the now new free world thinking, if we were doing a show called Stranger Things based in the now, I would definitely think that that Jim Hopper was kind of a creep and that was a bad male role model. However, and I might get crapped on for this. This might lose people. I do not care because the show is taking place in the 80s. And so the actors, and why I love the show so much, is everything that happens in that show is true to the time. It's true to the time. Damn it, it's true to the time. That's why I love it. And so the fact that Netflix caved on the whole stupid smoking thing, as little of a thing as that is, it's not like I need to see smoking, but I appreciate seeing it because it's a part of the environment. The mall tearing down small town America. Malls are like just a natural thing now. Malls are everywhere. Malls just exist. Malls and small town businesses coexist now because they found a medium ground where you get certain things from each one and, it finds its niche, whatever it is you're looking for. But back in that time, it was a different era. So please, anybody who wants to complain about stupid crap, please shut your mouths. Because they're playing the part of the time. And I agree with you, however, I didn't find Jim to be kind of creepy, but I do find him a person who has, since season 1, struggled with feelings, struggled with expressing those feelings, and he's had kind of a little bit of a thing for Joyce forever, and he loves her and he cares about her, just like with Eleven. He doesn't know how to be a father figure, just like he doesn't really know how to be a good boyfriend. He's been through so much in his life. He's kind of hardened himself. He's hurting on the inside, and he doesn't know how to put that out. And this is just speaking off the heart, from the tongue, just putting it out there, Steve. What do you think?
No, honestly, I completely agree with you. I wanted to bring it up because it is a big talking point right now. And yes, the smoking thing, again, I'm an ex-smoker. I had absolutely no problem with the amount of smoking they had in there because, again, I grew up in the 80s. My mom was a smoker. She still is a smoker. Everywhere I went, there was cigarette smoke. We sat in smoking sections of restaurants. You went to an airport, there was people smoking on planes. Like, that was the time. Is it the time now? Do we understand secondhand smoke and everything better? Yes. But this is situated in the 80s. They need to portray what the 80s really were, and it's why I love this show. It's the exact same problem they had with... people had with Mad Men on AMC. People were upset that it was showing like chauvinistic men that smoked all the time, were smoking in their offices, were sexually harassing the women in the show. And I'm like, that's the time they were in. Like, if I remember, I'm probably going to say the wrong era, but I'm pretty sure it was the 60s and 70s that Mad Men took place. At like the boom.
I never watched that show, so I don't know.
But I'm pretty sure that's when it was taking place. And I mean, at that time, that's exactly what was going on. So the show was designed to take place in a specific era. It's not going to feel like a genuine show. And you're not going to be as invested in the show if they're changing history to make it appear better now. They've done that with other like movies where they're like, I'm trying to think of one, but there was... Romeo and Juliet, for example. There was a Romeo and Juliet where they kept all the words the exact same, didn't change any of the dialogue, none of the script, but they said it in like a current time. So people were wearing current
Leonardo
clothes.
DiCaprio in it.
There was a couple others too. I watched an actual play with it too, and you don't feel as connected because it doesn't seem to fit. Because like the Leonardo DiCaprio one I enjoyed. I'm a huge Shakespeare.
Really like that. I'm a really big fan of that movie.
I'm a huge Shakespeare freak. Like when I was 12, I went to England, and one of the stops my aunt took me on because she lived there was Stratford upon Avon, which is Shakespeare's hometown. And we did a tour of Shakespeare's house. I bought a copy of Romeo and Juliet from actual Shakespeare's house. It turned out then that every year I was in high school. So for us in Canada, we called it grade 8, grade 9, grade 10, grade 11, and grade 12. We do numbers the whole way through.
Right.
4 out of the 5 years, we actually did Romeo and Juliet as one of our modules that year. So we read it, gave our own opinions, how we thought, dissected the writing. By the end of high school, I'm not even joking, I could recite it word for word without missing a single word. The entire story. No problem, no messing anything up. I've lost it all now. But I was a huge, huge Shakespeare nerd. And we went to, there's a big Shakespeare festival in Oregon every year. Takes place in Ashland, Oregon, which is down near the California-Oregon border. If you like Shakespeare, it is worth going to check out. The entire town becomes like Shakespeare.
That's cool.
We did that because I took English Lit in my senior year. So grade 12 for us Canadians, seniors for you guys. We did a trip down there spent like 3 or 4 days in Ashland, stayed at the University of Southern Oregon dorms, and I got to watch a couple different plays. One of the plays was Romeo and Juliet, and they came out wearing leather jackets, baggy jeans, because this was in 97. And so they were wearing clothes of now, using the original dialogue, but then fighting with swords. And it felt like this weird disconnect. I still enjoyed it because I am a big Shakespeare freak, but I didn't have that connection that I thought if they were fighting with guns, or like they did in the Leonardo DiCaprio version, where they updated everything but kept the dialogue the same. That wasn't quite the same disconnect, but I'm going off on a tangent now.
Bad, but I love it. I know. Steve. You keep talking your Romeo and Juliet love, buddy. You do you, player. But either way, I get it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like with Stranger Things, one of the things that makes it amazing is because it shows the times. And if anything, if you want to complain about it, that's fine. Everybody has a right to that opinion. However, take lessons. Like, look at how kind of backwards we used to be, and moving forward, how much we've improved, and we've still got work to do. As humanity, honestly, as human beings, we all suck.
Oh, yeah, and 100%.
Humans are just terrible people in general, inherently just crappy to each other. But sitting there crapping on some show because you don't like the way it was made, well, then don't watch the show. Get over yourself, man. I'm sorry. Like, if I want to complain about a show, I'm going to do it to my friends, but not the network. Like, and I'm going to complain about something like, oh, man, I really didn't like the way this character played. I'm not going to complain about the setting unless the setting just didn't work, right? In fact, if anything, I'd be like, wow, the smoking's gone. Like, that's weird because the 80s, that's all that ever happened. And I know that's such a minor, silly thing. And honestly, even though, like, if nobody complained about it and Netflix just on their own did it, like, oh, you know what? We're showing maybe a little too much smoking. Like, that's maybe influencing all these kids because, as we talked about, younger generation. But honestly, kids are smarter than us nowadays. So all these parents that are worried their kids are going to do stupid crap. Like, your kids are kids are going to do stupid stuff. I'm about to know what that's all about. Kids are going to do dumb things on their own, no matter what you do. You can't stop them unless you want the boy on the bubble. But you can't stop them. You can't stop them from growing up or making mistakes. It's going to happen. And, and not only that, kids vape now. I mean, I'm just saying, like, it's just like vaping is the thing to do. It's just a
different thing now.
Yeah, it's just a different intake of nicotine, man. I'm sorry. Like, I don't know why people complain about that. And as far as Hopper's character, Hopper played his character to the T of what they wanted him to be written as, and I think they did a great job at that. But yeah, the season was really, really good. And I thought that, like, it just progressed the story really well, and I very much enjoyed what Stranger Things is doing. I feel like I don't know what's going to happen next.
And that's a perfect segue, because I was going to ask you, did you watch the end credit scene?
I did, yeah. So the part where the Russians have their own Demogorgon.
Yes, and they're feeding it people.
Right. which they breezed by the Americans. So I talked to Popo about this, and I'll give you his take on it, because I personally, the only thing I did when I talked to Poston was go, hey man, how do the Russians have their own monster? And he responded with, well, isn't, 11's Russian, all those people that were originally doing it were Russian. And I was trying to remember, I don't remember how true that is or whatnot as far as like their origin. Whether it's true or false doesn't matter. But his opinion, and I'm just going to take his take because honestly, I don't have one. His take is that the Russians found a way into the Upside Down, and they know how to traverse back and forth. The only question I had about that was at the very beginning when they're talking to, not the very beginning, but during season 3 when they're talking to Ari, or what was his name?
I think it was
Ari, whatever. The Russian scientist, right? When they're talking to him about like Alexei, that was his name. So when they're talking to Alexei and they're trying to get the information out of him, he explains that they couldn't do it there, that they had to come to
because it was already opened open there at one point. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So in Hawkins, right? Hawkins.
In Hawkins.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool. I live in Indiana, so it's neat that I get to now watch a show that is based
Takes
out of
place
Indiana.
there.
Yeah. It makes Parks and Rec mean a lot more to me too, especially since I'm in Southern Indiana, so it's kind of cool. Anyway, so the whole thing was that so that's where I asked Popo. I was like, well, then how would they have done it? But he was like, well, I don't know. He had an answer. I don't remember exactly what it was, but he talked about the fact that he thinks when Hopper, when the machine goes, super critical or whatever and blows up, like everybody, and they make it a point in the very first episode, they show it, right? They show the bodies all in a pile of messy, bloody mess, right? Like they're all oozy. It shows back to where Hopper was standing because Joyce keeps looking there. Like, I swear 3 or 4 times. I don't know the number exactly, but she keeps looking back at that same spot. There is no goopy mess. It's a crystal clean everything. And there was a wall of electricity and lights and everything going on. I think I turned to Jess, my original opinion, I looked at her and I went, he went into the Upside Down. Like, he went into the Upside Down. That's what he did.
Honestly, that is my exact belief as well. I think he jumped through the portal that was right there, that was going open. I think he just said, you know what, screw it, I'm going to take the chance.
Yep, because it's a chance for survival. Human nature is not like, oh, I see a possibility, I'm not going to take it. That's not human nature. Human nature is, I want to survive. This way is closed off to me. That's another way. I'm going to take it. So where Popo's take, which I thought was very interesting, is if they did find a way to traverse in and out of the Upside Down, that's how they got the Demogorgon monster they're feeding. And when they look at the cell and they said the American, not the American, then I 100% think that they got Hopper. Like, they went into the Upside Down, they found Hopper, grabbed him, or he found a way out, but he found himself in Russia somehow, right? Like, and that's the one thing I don't know how that would work, because, and this is the only other part of that, is if you think about the Upside Down, unless they're moving vehicles and stuff in the Upside Down isn't, is there ever a point where it teleports you?
They never say. As the way they make it seem is it's a parallel dimension, and so the Earth is the same size.
Exactly. So every time they're traversing through the Upside Down, every time you see what Will in the Upside Down, he's walking normal. He's like walking through the Upside Down just like any other person would walk in the normal world, the right side up, if you will. Yeah. And so, like, I don't see, like, that was another problem I have with it. Unless the Russians have, like, brought vehicles into the Upside Down, I don't know how they got a hold of Hopper, so I don't know who the American is. The other thing I'd want to know, Jess apparently read an article where the kid actors want out of the show.
I have a feeling it's done after season 4. I think they've got one more season, and then they're going to end it.
Okay. Because they all kind of went their own way. Like, Will moved along with 11. Everybody moved. 11 doesn't have her powers anymore.
I think they'll come back. But yeah, no, I think they're setting it up like it could be it, but I think there's going to be one more season. And so my take on it is that was Hopper. That Hopper is the American. What I think happened was Alexei had said that they had tried multiple times trying to open a portal. I have a feeling that once they started to open it in Hawkins, it was able to power somewhere else. I don't know if they're possibly in another part of Indiana, maybe where 11 and them are moving, and that's where it is. Because I don't remember, does it actually say they're in Russia, or is it just people speaking Russian?
No, I thought it said they were in Russia. I thought the very first caption that pops up.
I could be forgetting it.
Yeah, and this is part of where rewatching helps, but I thought the very first thing that pops up is it actually says they're in Russia.
Like somewhere in Russia, yeah.
Right, yeah, exactly.
And I mean,
which, by the way, where's the elevator?
Which elevator?
This is total sidetrack. That end credit scene, man.
Oh, yeah.
They are walking that spiral staircase all the way down. There's no elevator, man. What the heck?
Oh, God, I know. Because who knows how far down there?
Right. So crazy. Anyway, sorry.
No. And yeah, so anyways, I think he did go into the Upside Down, because that would have, honestly, if I'm Hopper, that's what I'm doing. And I'm thinking that whatever the Russians were doing, it worked, maybe only because the Hawkins side was open, that it worked on the Russian side. And so he was able to get in. He was able to... They don't know, like, they don't tell you how long he was... It's a year later. So you don't know if he was just taken out. Yeah. So you don't know if he was just removed or if he'd been in there for months. Like, it's... Or if he was, like, instantly, he just appeared in Russia. Like, again, they don't give you that detail, so...
That's very, very true. I forgot about the year later thing. So that makes sense. That kind of answers that question, because... depending on how he nourished himself and things, I would love to see, like, I'm hoping that in season 4 they show how Hopper made it through the Upside Down. And I'm sure they would, because why would you leave that unanswered? Or maybe they don't want to touch on it. I don't know. But I do see, with the kids all being split up, there's a chance they do season 4 without some of the kids.
It is very possible they could. I don't know if it would be the same.
Yeah, I think it would hurt it, for sure.
Yeah, because the more I even watch them doing interviews and stuff afterwards, like, they're incredibly... Again, it could all just be acting, and they're really good actors. But they all have, it appears to be really good friendships between each other. So it would be nice to see them finish the series off, give it a proper closing. Like, I would like to see them be able to... They did it a lot better this year, actually, I should say, but... not have to rely on 11 to do everything.
And I liked that. Like, I liked the fireworks scene. I thought that was really, really cool. It was neat to see it. I very much enjoyed the almost like Traffic, if you remember that movie, like way they did the different groups. Like, they each had, like, almost Lord of the Rings way, right?
Yeah,
like
they each had their own quest.
Yeah, and I love... So Lord of the Rings probably a better way to do that than Traffic. But... yeah, they each had their own quests, and it was very cool to see Dustin with Erica, Robin, and Steve, especially since that particular group had two new main characters in it, right?
Yes.
Which I thought was just like ballsy on their part, but it turned out so well, because even then they split them into their own groups, right? Where you ended up having Steve and Robin in their own little world. And then Dustin and Erica had their own thing. And all of it was great. I loved seeing the one guy who made the relationship out of Nancy and Jonathan, seeing him again as Hopper's contact.
Yes.
It was cool to see him and
his character was so well done.
It was so much more than it even was in season 2. In season 2, it was good. But to see him in season 3 and him and Alexi's friendship was really awe-inspiring. Like, Alexi, it goes back to kind of our Star Wars pit where we talk about these characters you fall in love with and they don't last very long. Well, Alexi was this character that I thought was super entertaining. He was a lot of fun. And I'm not sure I loved his character, but I was very much entertained by his character and that relationship. Well, and you think about the time,
too. Like, this is the 80s. This was the height of the Cold War.
Yeah, exactly. Which is what I thought was so cool about it. Again, playing on the times, people. But what I think's funny about that, what I think's funny about this, and the fact that we talked about 80s style, 80s style returning,
Yeah.
you know, its own way. And like this Stranger Things has the Russians as the villains is funny to me because of how much we currently in politics have so much against like the Russians' involvement with the election.
I know, again.
Putin.
It's the Russians all over again.
Right? Exactly. So I think it's if Stranger Things is anything, it's on the money. And so it's pretty cool and neat and kind of genius. I mean, it's just kind of crazy the way they did it, and it was super entertaining to watch. I loved it. I thought it was a lot of fun. But I still like. I think Billy was just.
Yeah, Billy stole the season. Billy completely
He was cut
stole the
above,
season.
man. It was just amazing. Like that whole scene at the pool. Just watching him walk in, I was like, "Oh, okay, it's Billy." You know, and at that time I'm just trying to figure out who it is. I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh yeah, who's this character again? I know he matters." Oh, come on, Aaron, you can do it. You can do it. Oh yeah, that's right. Right? You know, and it all started coming back to me. But then like just transformative. It was just very cool. It's cool to
The
see an actor.
shower scene or the sauna scene?
Yes. Like his transformations were just so good. And whoever that old lady was, she was great. She was nuts, dude. Yeah, that was so good. But like I liked and that's one thing. You want to talk about like something that shows the times. Everybody's complaining about Hopper. What about everything Nancy was going through in the workplace?
Yes, exactly. It was full like chauvinist.
Yep.
Yep.
I couldn't have been happier that those two people died.
Go get us more coffee, Nancy Drew.
Yeah, exactly. Like that, if anything, like that should show you like how backwards we used to be and still kind of are, and those issues are being fought. But like just showing that, like that's important to show because it's a part of the times. And it also makes those two people dying that much more satisfying in the show. Not gonna lie, I mean, I hate to say I like seeing people die, but I like seeing those two idiots die. And like that was one thing I thought was really cool with Nancy and Jonathan's relationship is that they're two kids in love growing up and finding each other for real, right? Because if you think about season 2 and that relationship and how it came to be, and then season 3 is kind of like, okay, can it last? They're now been together for a little bit, and then Nancy has her convictions, and Jonathan stands by her until he finally loses what he could lose, which is his job. And you kind of see a turn for the worse, and then they find each other again. Unfortunately, through tragedy, right? As everybody gets brought back together through the tragedy of the return of the Mind Flayer. So it's interesting to see how these characters interact. It's interesting to see how they grow. I was entertained. I had a lot of fun with that season. I thought it was good. I really thought it was great. And R.I.P. Samwise Gamgee.
Yeah,
I know that he went
I
in the second
completely agree
season,
with
but
you. Yeah, this season was one of the better things I've watched in the last little while.
Honestly, I thought for a second there it was going to be over. I really thought this was going to end it. I didn't expect this season 4
Honestly,
to be
they could end it. They could decide not to come back, and I wouldn't be upset. Like, there was enough closure that I would be okay with it being over.
So, whereas my wife would totally disagree with us, I agree with you. I feel like if I got a season 4, I'd be happy with it. But if I got a season 4 lacking some of the main characters, I think I'd be better off having season 3 be the end.
Yes. Yeah, if they're not getting the whole cast for season 4, I'd rather them not do it.
Yep, because season 3, it was enough, like you said, it was enough closure on a lot of stories that I feel like I got my worth out of it. Like that I feel like it was just good enough, you know what I mean?
And I mean, the highlight of season 3 was the never-ending story. So,
never-ending story. When they started, well, here's the thing. So,
do you know how many times I hear my kids sing that? Honestly,
well, have they ever seen Never-ending Story?
Not yet.
Oh my gosh! Wow,
it's on our to-do list.
That is funny.
I can't find it on any streaming service. But
so you want to talk? Well, I own that movie. So you want to talk about a movie that I loved as a kid, like big time. Now I'm not big on the sequels as much, just the original more than anything. But I watched all of them. You are like Atreyu. I listened to the band Atreyu just because they were called Atreyu. Okay, I'm just saying, like, I was into that kind of music at the time, so it was fitting. But I mean, as soon as somebody said Atreyu, I was like, Atreyu, right? So let's talk about Neverending Story. Okay, so there was two things happening online. So because of, like I told you, I was in Texas, I had to kind of avoid the internet because I didn't want Spider-Man to get ruined for me, which I succeeded in doing, and I didn't want Stranger Things to get ruined for me, which I kind of succeeded at doing. So when it came to Stranger Things, there was two big memes happening. One was about a raid on Area 51. I hated that I saw that because I thought that had to do with Stranger Things. And then, because again, I hadn't seen Stranger Things yet, so, you know, I didn't know. And then there was a bunch of people with Falcor stuffed animals, and I was like, why is there Falcor stuffed animals showing up?
Yeah.
I was like, oh, God, if that's the 80s, like, that has to be Stranger Things. I was like, crap, something's getting ruined. However, to my surprise, Area 51 is an actual thing that's happening, so I don't know what's up with that, but apparently whatever. So I don't know enough about it to get into it, but I was happy it wasn't ruining
I can
Stranger
explain that
Things.
to you afterwards. That's fine.
Okay, that sounds great. And then the second thing with the Falcor things, it was cool and it was a pleasant surprise because I was like, oh, I guess the Falcor, like I guess that's something that's just happening in the background, whatever. And then it happened when that musical number happened. I was like, no way!
It was so
my
well
God.
done too, because it was like everybody was still going through their everything. Still doing everything, and then Dustin and Susie are just singing away, and
Yep.
you could see. I don't even remember which character it is, but there's my daughter mentions it constantly that all you see is like the one character with their hand buried into their arms as they're leaning against a wall in frustration, like, just give me the number.
Please tell me what the number is. But they have to take this time to sing it. And it was amazing. It was a really good duet. It was fun to hear it. I loved it because Neverending Story was huge. And it was great. So it wasn't ruined for me. Nothing was ruined. I did like that number. It was funny. I liked when Erica shut it off. She's like, that's enough. Like, I've had it. You got to stop.
That's it. Done.
Right?
Done.
Yeah, we're done. We're done here.
Yeah.
Like, just hangs up on Susie. But yeah, so.
Well, I think that's a good spot to end it, as we're both leaving on a very happy note.
So happy with a never-ending story.
Yep. That's what our show is now. We're the never-ending story. Incoming new theme song. No.
Tell them how to reach us, Steve.
Yep. You can reach me on Twitter at CanYouGeek. You can reach him at Southam Designs. You can meet him sometime, too, in the future. Hopefully we'll have a meetup. You can find us on Facebook, Can You Geek Podcast. We're around. You can find us.
Support us on Patreon.
Yeah, support us on the Patreon. We're still working on the perks for that, but yep, it's coming. Everything's coming.
One day.
Yep. All right. Later, nerds.
Later, nerds.
Today's music is used by permission from the artist Broke for Free. The song is called Something Elated. You can find it on freemusicarchive.org under the user Broke for Free.